Hi, everyone. I'm Annabelle from BioBuzz. I'm super excited to have you guys all back today for another one of our Career Catalyst sessions as part of our Career Catalyst and Community Office Hours series. So if you guys haven't joined one of these sessions before, these are weekly conversations designed to connect you directly with leaders in life sciences who share their experience and practical advice to help you grow your career. And today we're joined again by Roger Ouimet, Global Director of Program and Project Management at CAI. So whether you're starting a new project or consulting engagement, I know it can feel a little bit overwhelming sometimes stepping into unfamiliar environments. So Roger's going to share some strategies for setting up projects for success and uncovering and understanding clients' needs, as well as navigating new teams or consulting roles with confidence. So want to thank BioTrack today before we get started for sponsoring today's session. If you haven't heard of them before, great resource for upskilling. I would definitely check them out at biotrack.com. And also want to mention that today's session is part of the BioBuzz Talent Lab, which is your go-to place for job opportunities, industry events, and professional growth. So like I said, hop on there. You'll be able to create a profile and get access to more opportunities like this. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to turn over to Raj.
Great. Well, thanks, Annabelle. Let me go ahead and I will share my screen so that I can share the presentation that I've pulled together. Okay. Bingo. All right. Now again. All right. So it should be Project Launchpad. Is that the
Yes.
slide you're seeing? Okay.
Perfect.
Sorry about that, guys. A little clunky on the start, but so as Annabelle teed this up, I'm going to be talking this afternoon to all of you about my experience and one of the really key facets of getting a project off the ground. And I'm going to kind of talk about some key tactics and really some key learnings that I've found in some of my projects, and how hopefully it's something that you can sort of put into your bag of tricks as you're looking to get projects started, consulting opportunities going, and really trying to navigate the unknowns as you get things started. So a little bit about myself, just maybe to kind of help you to understand where I'm coming from and some of my experiences. So as Annabelle mentioned, I am CAI's Global Director for Program and Project Management. I have been primarily in sort of a dual career. I had a 30-year U.S. Navy career. I actually retired just over 2 years ago. 23 years of that career were in the Navy Reserve. So I have a parallel career in which my civilian career started in about 2000. And 16 of those years were in pharmaceutical manufacturing, life sciences, biotech, and the like. And I've been with CAI now for 4 years. You can see 3 of the projects that I am most proud of. When I was an employee at Novo Nordisk, I was a project manager and lean consultant, and I worked for the company to build in Clayton, North Carolina, a full value stream improvement and installation of a brand new process. You guys might be very familiar in the insulin GLP-1 market, the Ozempic product that Novo Nordisk brought to market. We helped to install a new delivery system, a pen called the FlexPen Assembly and FlexPen packaging process. And it had some new formulations of some ultra long-lasting insulins and the like. So that was an end-to-end full organization operational readiness project there. Then another additional project while I was a management consultant on behalf of my client, Flex was a CDMO, which stands for Contract Design Manufacturing Organization. They brought the surface mounted technology, we called it the puck, for continuous glucose monitoring, and that supported Abbott's Freestyle Libre system, which was on their cell phone, and it had a transceiver app that would read on this continuous glucose monitoring system, would read the blood glucose levels for the patient. And we converted, and I was the lead in the quality work stream to help my client move from being a consumer products manufacturer into FDA certification and all of the operational readiness requirements of installing new equipment, getting it all validated, getting the staff up and running, and things of that sort. And then lastly, I was the head of the PMO at Excelia, and I had a collateral duty of being the operational readiness project manager, ORPM, where we launched a first of its kind in the United States, aseptically filled bag in an isolator to bring ready to use unmet need product to patients. And so I was really, really excited about that. And so I brought those experiences with me prior to working for CAI to bear in my current role of bringing program and project management and operational readiness to my clients. Why does that matter for this conversation? Well, these were very complex projects, and it really required sort of in the first few weeks of a project for me to step back and understand and learn what did I need to do to really get the project off the ground the best way. And so that's what I'm going to be talking to you guys about today. Three main topics that I'm going to cover today. I'm going to talk about the problem clarification. I'm going to try to spend the most amount of my time on this, really understanding what you want to solve. Because if you do a poor job at really defining the requirements of a project and what the goals and defining what you're setting out to do, you might solve the wrong problem. So I'm gonna kind of cover some techniques that I've utilized to do that effectively. Then I'll move into the actual kickoff itself and sort of what that looks like, who to have in the room, what to talk about, what to build, what are some deliverables of a kickoff, and then how I effectively execute project delivery in some of those extremely complex projects that I touched on. And then we'll close with some questions and answers. Just a reminder, as Annabelle mentioned, if you do think of some questions, I'll certainly look forward to helping to answer those. And I want it to be a really nice dialogue, informal back and forth and the like. So if you can punch those into the chat, Annabelle will be compiling that through my talk. And then we can go from there. Well, those will be the leading questions, and then we'll just kind of go back and forth to close out the session. Okay. So let me first kick off or really help everyone to understand, how do I get started on complex projects or consulting endeavors or trying to really understand challenging detective work, if you will. And I'm a huge fan of detective shows and FBI shows and forensics, and really kind of trying to understand, how did this happen? Let me look at the crime scene. Let me see what the evidence is that's being presented to me. And it's very, very relatable in the business environment, and in my case, of course, life sciences and pharmaceuticals. That there's some really key parallelisms there that are very, very helpful to getting a project off the ground. All right. So if you're not familiar with the Project Management Institute, it has a life cycle of a project approach to planning for and then executing a project. The very first thing that you would do in any project is, of course, you have to state what it is that you want to go and do. There might be a business case that is a part of it. There might be some justification. Typically, you have to have some financial justification. You want to improve a process or performance, or you want to increase capacity, or you want to increase your portfolio of products, or something of that sort. Or in a consulting engagement, you might understand from the client, they just want to improve. They just don't know how. It's a shiny new object that they want. They don't know what it is, but they just want it. And so you, as the consultant, or you as the project manager, are charged with coming into this environment and understanding the problem. Okay, so I've got a few things here that I really utilize in doing that, taking it from the definition of a project or the idea of a project, which has a business case for justification. And now I come to the client, I come to the site, and I need to spend some time living the life of the client. I need to do what is called maybe a day in the life observation. It's called a DILO, D-I-L-O. I literally am doing time study of every activity, maybe in 10-minute increments. This person did this, and then this, and then this, and I might even be tracking motion that they're doing, extra touches of a highly sensitive or delicate product. I'm looking for things that could be introducing defects to the process. That's one potential way that I'm understanding and observing the problem or the area of what the challenge is. If it's more of an installation project, or it's a construction project, or it's a build or something like that, I'm going to pull that business case and I'm going to do what's called challenge the assumptions. There are some constraints and restraints that have been put in place that are assumption based. So constraints are what I must do. I must operate my project within these parameters. It must be completed by this time. It must be with only this number of people. It must cost this maximum. Those are some constraints. Or I must use this vendor for this particular piece of equipment, no questions asked. Fine. Those are assumptions that are constraint based. Then I have restraint based assumptions as well, that I am restricted from, I am forbidden from, prevented from using this or that. Similar, kind of wording that might go into that, but it's, thou shalt not do this or that or the other, right? And so when I'm in and I'm observing and I'm watching what's going on, I'm going to be building a list of things that I need to go back to my sponsor, my client, or stakeholders within the client, and I need to be asking questions. I need to be pushing back. I need to be really fully wrapping my head around what the environment is that they have put together. Because, if it was, I always say in consulting, if it was easy, anyone would do it. And ideally, if it was easy, they wouldn't pay me to do it. So you want to kind of approach it that way, that you're a new set of eyes. They might be way too into the details to be able to really see the problem in its totality. And that's really your role up front. Then those observations start to gather data. I am collecting information. I was talking earlier about the time studies or the day in the life observations, and I'm mapping the process, or I'm understanding how this area that maybe we're going to do an expansion of a building, or we're going to build a brand new building. What is the watershed requirements? What are the town's permit requirements? What are the what's the ecosystem from a talent-based perspective? These are all data points that I need to put together that will help in analyzing and planning out the project. And then I take that data and then I start to analyze or interpret the data, providing myself information. That information is then going to inform me and my team. I may be there with a group of consultants or a project team, and we're all working together in different areas to observe and pull data together. And that's going to help us to start to formulate our project charter. That project charter, very scripted. The Project Management Institute has a number of different templates, and I've used some different templates. And even from my master's program in project management, I've gained some others. But in general, you of course, you state the problem in the project charter and what the requirements of the project are, high level. Who are the members of the project team? Who are the members of the client site that are stakeholders that have some interest, whether they're providing input and support to the project, or they will be affected and impacted by the project. That's typically the definition of a stakeholder. Understanding who your project sponsor is. That's the person who is really paying for you and has brought you in, and they're usually the person at the client site to whom you report. And they'll work with you as well as the governance body and the steering committee body to understand what your authorities are. If you are simply influencing and the company will really be doing much of the work, or in some cases you might be brought in and you're a member of the team and you have authority vested in you to make hiring, firing decisions, financial decisions for the project, and things like that. So you really want to understand a lot of those aspects. Okay. The next piece, Gemba. That's a lean manufacturing term, which is essentially that you want to go to the place of the work. You want to see where your challenges are. You want to see where the project or the consulting opportunity will lie, where it will impact what the process looks like, because that's going to be very, very informative for you and your team of what you're facing, right? And if you're solving a problem, then Gemba will help you in some cases see symptoms. You'll talk to folks that work in that area, and they're usually the most knowledgeable. Even though they may be far from the most senior in the organization, they really know what's going on, and you really want to respect and receive input from those folks, because that's really going to pay off later, because you've really shaped the problem to the best of yours and your team's ability by going there and gathering the data at the site. And then from all of that, and especially in the project charter, you want to build a high-level roadmap where it's kind of milestones overall. When will I deliver different phases of the benefits or the project itself? I might have, if I'm building a building, I'll have the frame built. I'll have vendors selected. I'll have equipment delivered. I'll start to install. I'll qualify it. I'll tie it in. I'll build, my organization around it. Those are some of the high level milestones. And of course, you have to make sure that it all fits within the original constraints and restraints that you were told when you came on site, when you came into the organization to help them with this challenge. Okay, so that's. And that varies in the amount of time it takes to go through all of this. I've been in some, multi-year expected projects, a large installation of a new piece of equipment, process, or system, and that might be a 2 or 3 month endeavor to do this analysis and build the plan. It might be a couple of weeks, because maybe it's a quarter long, it's 13 to 16 week endeavor, or something like that, with about 2 weeks of analysis up front. You really want to try to not shortchange this, and I typically recommend, unless it's an incredibly short project, I would really see about a week is the best, unless the project itself is just going to be a week. And then maybe you just spend the better part of the first day really gathering a lot of this information. But again, you do yourself an injustice if you don't pay close attention to making this right. Okay, so now you've got your plan, you have your high level roadmap, you have your project charter. You seem to have, in your team's mind, uncovered and documented all of the updated assumptions that are informing and really leading you to this project plan. Now you have to confirm that everything you've got on paper, your team has uncovered and put together and documented, is really aligned with the client's expectations. Okay, so now what you want to do is you want to have a kickoff meeting. In some cases, you might have had the kickoff meeting just because you got started and you had some information up front with the client that when you get on site, you kick off. You even kick off your analysis. So that's one version that your kickoff can get started. And then if that's the case, then this meeting for this slide is more of a milestone gate review. That, hey, I've completed my analysis and I've completed my planning. But before we execute, we need to get my plan approved according to what I and my team have pulled together. And that's really the spirit and the intent of this. Before you can start spending money on execution of the project and buying the materials and getting them shipped and installed, you have to align on the expectations up front. So at a minimum, you must have your project sponsor. He or she is the person who is paying your endeavor, paying the purchase order for you, and they've brought you in, and so they are the resource assignment stakeholder for the entire project. So they have to be at this kickoff meeting, and if you are unable to get them there, you have to reschedule. That's just my recommendation. You really can't do without them. You should have as many members, if not the entire body of the steering committee or the governance committee, whatever the endeavor you're doing will have. Most of the projects that I have been involved in have had one or the other, and the makeup of them is practically the same. It's just a different name. I've been in some that are very, very small, minor projects that really didn't have a steering committee per se, but it at least had a sponsor. But if you are a complex and large enough project that there is such, you should have as many of the members of the steering committee or governance committee in attendance for this kickoff meeting. And then lastly, the recommendation would, in addition to your steering committee, I mentioned earlier that you spent time getting to know and identifying key stakeholders throughout the organization. In many cases, they might be the functional heads or representatives of functional areas that are either impacted by the project. Maybe they're a customer, maybe they're a government or community body outside of the organization, or certainly internal to the client, department heads or representatives from those departments or functional areas. And then certainly in the project area itself, you're going to have representatives, and you might even have representatives if it's a shift operation. You might have folks from all 4 shifts that are stakeholders because they can provide inputs, they can drive the project forward, or they might be impacted by the project, right? So that's sort of the makeup of who should be in attendance in the kickoff meeting. And then what does that look like? And I've seen various formats for the kickoff presentation itself, but in essence, it is a visual representation of the project charter. And it is talking through the scope as you now have observed it and are articulating it. And that may very well have changed and morphed and molded because, some folks don't know what they don't know when they understand, they think a problem, but now you've spent an analysis phase actually clarifying that problem and being able to speak with data. And from that, you're going to confirm that not only the scope of the project, but what you're going to set out to do, the goals that you want to achieve, and the project requirements. A project may not simply be launch this new product. It might be that you meet market demand, meaning you not only launch the product, but you get a particular run rate or capacity of the equipment being met, that you may launch it because you have a qualifying team, but you really need 2 shifts operation to be able to meet market demand. That may or may not play into some of the requirements of your project. You want to get that documented. You want to make sure that that's all part of the plan that you put in place, because if not, you have to go back to the drawing board and you're not ready to execute because you're misaligned on scope, goals, and requirements. The next, and by the way, you might see these 3 bullets. They're aligned very tightly with what's called the triple constraint of a project, which is scope. The next one is timeline, and the third is the budget or the cost, right? So this is really what you're making sure you have correct, your understanding is there, and that your client is aligned on that. Okay, so now timeline. You roll out the roadmap. If you're doing it in the initial kickoff before you get started, then you will spend your planning phase to build a detailed work breakdown structure and level 5 integrated project schedule. And at this point, you're just looking to make sure that your roadmap is correct. If instead you're getting ready to hit the execution phase, you need approval, you might go a little deeper than just the roadmap, and you might actually cover some of the deliverables within your full work breakdown structure and the timing of those. And then the last piece of your kickoff presentation is that budget, that cost management side. So you want to make sure that your financials, your financial understanding, your budget is set correctly, that you understand how you'll have cost controls in place. And you want to understand with the client what performance reporting structure do they want from a cost, from a timing. Will they have monthly updates? Will they have weekly updates? And that will all inform your communication plan as you get ready to execute. Once you have this all aligned and you get the thumbs up, get it written, get it signed by the project sponsor that your plan is approved to proceed. And then you move into the actual project delivery. And so the key items that I look at as I get set up to execute a project and to do it in an excellent manner, I always feel 2 to 3 items are the most important. The first 3 bullets, I say 2 to 3 because my first bullet and my third bullet, I absolutely 100% of my projects consider the most important management aspects of a project. You've identified earlier, many of your stakeholders attended your kickoff. You understand when you were meeting with them, and you've hopefully, if you're a skilled and trained and preferably certified project manager, you understand the stakeholder matrix, which tracks and plots each stakeholder's influence, how much power they have to make decisions and potentially hold you back or drive you in places you may or may not want to go with your project. So influence and interest. You might have a stakeholder who is the CEO of the company. They have the utmost influence of the entire company, but they could not care less that your project is going to be putting flowers in the back parking lot that the CEO doesn't even park in. That's a project, but it may have no interest. It's not on the CEO's radar at all. Otherwise, you might have a stakeholder who is absolutely interested because he or she is the shift manager in a filling operation, and they really need a third shift added. So, it's absolutely going to impact their throughput, and they're going to have a supervisor on the third shift who's running it and whatnot, but they have minimal influence as a shift manager compared to, say, the site head or the production director overall, right? So you want to kind of understand where that fits, because once you know that for all of your stakeholders, you will build a communication plan from that stakeholder matrix to manage each of those stakeholders. Now, let me caution you, keep that stakeholder matrix to yourself. Do not make that public information, because you might offend folks of what your observations are about. They may try to change your thoughts on it, and your observations are your observations. They can change. It should be dynamically managed, but initially it is just based on what you've observed, and you set up a communication plan to help to inform appropriately each stakeholder according to their influence and their interest level. And then you can adjust it as you go and make modifications as stakeholders change, or their influence changes, their interest level changes, or things of that sort. And then lastly, and I talked about that schedule that you got approved at least at the roadmap level earlier, or maybe even you got it down to a full level 5 integrated schedule. You will set up a schedule management plan to have a cadence of reviews. You'll have look aheads. You want to be setting your resources up for success as things are coming around the pike in the calendar, and always know where you are in the schedule. Those 2 to 3 things: stakeholder engagement, communication plan, and schedule management, need to be the anchors of any effective project as you get it kicked off and begin executing. And then you need to know where you are along the project. So you should build some key performance indicators, KPIs, that are most relevant to the performance of your project. You should look for risks and have a risk management plan to handle the most impactful risks to your project. And that's either to the project itself, or even risk to that which you're building, risk to the building, or risk to a product, or risk to a process. Those are the types of risks that you want to look at and factor that into your plan. And then lastly, things will change. You may go on or off schedule. Finances may change throughout. Resources come and go. Scope could change. And all of that might require things to change in the project plan. And so you need to have a change management plan for how those will get vetted, and how they'll get approved, and then how they'll get implemented in your updated project plan. So that's my formula for success. as you go from starting a client, planning and analyzing it, and getting it kicked off and then executed. So with that, I will take a pause. I am going to leave this up and keep presenting for a question or two, and then I'll stop sharing. But I want to leave this up in case folks want to write down my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me via email or via LinkedIn if you'd like to have further conversations. I am an active mentor in project management in the Northeast Ohio chapter. I happen to live in Cleveland, Ohio, but I can also mentor folks throughout the capital region. I know that I'm speaking to you through the Maryland BioBuzz chapter. So by all means, we can certainly connect and love to hear what you're up to, and hopefully I can help you to be successful as well.